What's up everybody, this is Danny, and today I'm doing the camera comparison between the iPhone 8 and the new 2020 iPhone SE. So I know there's going to be a lot of people out there that have an iPhone 8, and even though that the SE 2020 looks like the iPhone 8, there are some nice improvements, especially in the processor. So I want to see what the A13 actually does for the SE and see if this camera is any better and worth an upgrade over the iPhone 8 series. Let's go ahead and check this out and see how this camera stacks up. Pretty curious.
Wow, what about that audio difference? I forgot how much the audio has been improved since the iPhone 8 series, so that is noticeable right away. Doing this comparison test, it made me realize how well the iPhone 8 held up over time. During the day, it keeps up well with the new iPhone SE, and this is what I expected, but there are some key improvements, so let's go ahead and break those down. First big noticeable difference in the picture quality is dynamic range. The A13 processor shows that leap with smart HDR. Consistently, there is more cloud detail when you're taking landscape shots. The highlight preservation is better with less clipping, and in direct sunlight, you can see how much better the new SE is handling dynamic range. So this alone, I think, is a major leap between the two. Generally speaking, after looking at about 100 or so pictures side by side, the iPhone 8 tends to process with more contrast, while the iPhone SE 2020 brightens up the image with more shadow detail. This can make shots of greenery a little nicer out of the camera on the iPhone 8, and this is going to be a preference thing for sure, but I'd rather have extra dynamic range and detail coming out of the iPhone SE and add some contrast later, but this is a pure auto test, so let me know what you think. I don't blame you at all for liking some of these iPhone 8 pictures better, but even though sometimes I do prefer the iPhone 8, just look at how much sharper the SE's pictures are. Look at this rope here. You can literally see every fiber, where on the 8, it's nowhere near as detailed. So the improved processing will sure give you the better shot over 90% of the time. So on this alone, I think it's worth the jump. With people and skin tones, much hasn't changed again besides the contrast level, but you do get an advantage with the SE over the iPhone 8 because you can do portrait mode even with a single lens, which I think is nice, just like the iPhone XR did before. Sometimes it can brighten a little too much like here, but it does look really good with decent edge detection. It even got in between my son's arms here in the shot. But just like the XR, you can't take portrait mode pictures of objects, which is a bummer because with third-party apps, you can definitely do this. So I hope Apple adds this in with the future software update. Same with the front-facing camera, you can do portrait mode with selfies where you can't do that with the iPhone 8. Skin tones do go back and forth, but overall I like the SE better on the balance with skin brightness and contrast. Their portrait mode isn't bad either, so if you want this feature and you do have an iPhone 8, this is something to consider. That is a quick breakdown, but let me know what you guys think of the daytime pictures overall. Sometimes the white balance does go back and forth, but for the most part, they are both consistent. For some, it might not look wildly different, but when you do a 400% scale crop, you can obviously see the detail difference here. Just look at that leaf. During the day, the new iPhone SE for sure takes the win. When it comes to 4K video, they can both shoot 4K 60 frames per second. This is how far the iPhone 8 was. It was ahead of its time with this feature, but this is 4K 30 frames per second that you're seeing now. You can really see that extended dynamic range on the new iPhone SE 2020. You do lose this feature when you go into 4K 60 frames per second, and that is a bummer, but look at that dynamic range difference in the sky there with the sun peeking through. It's night and day difference in my opinion. Another win on the video side is the stabilization. You can clearly see that in this handheld walking shot that the iPhone SE 2020 is so much more stable. You can really see the bounce in the iPhone 8 where the SE is less pronounced and smoother all around. And again, you can see the nice improvement in dynamic range here. Let's get to the low light performance, what I was most curious about, and let's get this out of the way. You don't get night mode on the new iPhone SE, and night mode recently only made it to the iPhone, so you won't see this on the iPhone 8. But I am glad to say that there are some nice improvements even without night mode. The same thing during the day translates here. Smart HDR feature really shows. Look at this sign, it's clearly visible on the SE where it's blown out on the iPhone 8. Even with tapping to focus and changing the exposure point, the SE is still better. The iPhone 8 again with the more contrasty shot and sometimes more colorful shot can make some of the pictures look better like this one, but 99% of the time you will get a sharper shot with better focus like this. This is such a big difference Like in this shot, you can see the plant detail with no issues at all, where it's blurry on the iPhone 8. And even though the iPhone 8 can make certain scenarios look better with more contrast, crushing the noise out in some of the shots, most of the time you will get a much cleaner and sharper picture with the new iPhone SE. Punching in 400% scale will show you the noise pattern. It's blotchy and inconsistent on the iPhone 8, where it is consistent on the SE. Here's another example of this, where when you crop in, you can see just so much more detail with better dynamic range and less noise. So in comparison with non-iPhones out there, the SE isn't the strongest low light performer by any means, because it is still pretty noisy in low light. But in comparison to the iPhone 8, this is a nice jump up. Where the iPhone 8 wins surprisingly is the front-facing camera at night. They are both not great, but the iPhone 8 exposes the skin better and is also sharper. The iPhone SE seems to be raising the ISO heavily, trying to brighten the image to the point where the noise can get insane. It's unusable when it does this. I am sure that this can be fixed with a software update down the road, but the iPhone 8 is better here. You can do portrait mode too in low light on the front-facing camera on the SE, but the results are mixed, to say the least. On nighttime 4K video, the same thing is happening here, where the ISO is increased heavily on the iPhone SE 2020, where the iPhone 8 is crushing almost all of the shadow detail to reduce noise. Once again, I think this is going to be a preference thing, and even though there is more light and detail being picked up by the SE and people will probably like this more, the noise level is just way too high for my liking. But for the average user who is looking for their phone to just give them a brighter video during lower light conditions, you're going to like this. Let me know which one that you think is better in the comments below. So there it is in a nutshell. This camera comparison was made to help you iPhone 8 owners out there with a buying decision if you're interested in the $399 iPhone SE 2020. If you're looking for a camera upgrade and don't need the multiple lenses like the wide angle, I say go for it. There's enough of a difference that I would call this a great upgrade from the iPhone 8. I hope this video helped you out, and if it did, give this video a thumbs up, subscribe for more videos like this, and I will see you in the next one.